goes over Essay 2. Originally, this was posted during week 6 in the week 6, Essay 2 book, Requirements and Resources. It's been posted and relinked to over the last few weeks in the weekly message and the assignments that you've had. So keep in mind, this assignment combines primary and secondary research, and you're looking specifically at the rhetorical practices in the career that you have chosen to analyze. Keep in mind that it's not purely informational about that field. It's to look at the rhetorical practices, that is the writing, speech situations, and so on, of how this field uses these particular items. So keep in mind that your audience is people new to the field or interested in learning about communication practices that are utilized. So it's not a academic specialized audience. It's not a super general or public audience. This is the audience. So keep in mind that you will have to define certain terms and jargon and so on. Okay. So questions to think about if you haven't done so already. What are people writing? What audiences do they address? What purposes do they seek to fulfill in their writing? What are the written conventions and so on? So thinking about the forms of communication, because this is important when you are looking at the artifacts that you should have found for your primary research. So keeping in mind specific requirements, it is a 5 to 7 page paper utilizing MLA format. This week you have some materials devoted to that to help you kind of brush up on that, including in-text citations and a works cited page. The works cited page and the transcript are not included in that 5 to 7 page requirement. Here's a formula to follow if you haven't already seen this to help you structure their paper and so on. So in the introduction paragraph, engage your reader, provide your audience with a basic understanding of the field and the types of communication practices. It should have a thesis that reflects something about that communication practice within the field. So remember, it's a communication practice, how they use writing, how they use rhetoric, all of these things are more or less synonymous. Okay, so your body paragraphs. Now this part is absolutely essential. They should support your thesis through specific examples on any number of topics. So what is the distinctive communication feature? How do your sources support whatever this communication feature is? So you should have one topic per paragraph, but note that you can cite either form of your primary research and your secondary research. It's not the case that you have a primary research section for your interview, a primary research section for your artifacts, and then your secondary sources. Any of those sources can be used in conjunction with one another to support your point in any paragraph, as you can see if you've looked at some of the samples here. So do include a works cited page and an appendix of your typed transcript from your interview. Now, that's the overview. There are some brief guidelines, sort of condensed ones attached to your assignment submission here. I've moved that, as you probably have seen, to the end of this week. If you click on it, what you'll see, I have it should have it in student view here. Yeah, so you should see the rubric if you haven't already. That was posted a couple weeks ago as well. Okay, so keeping in mind the different components of the paper, there's the research component of the interview. You should have already conducted that. So make sure that it's a professional in the field. An advanced student can work in a pinch. So this is the component that has the transcript requirement, so that if the interview is recorded or if it was done via email, you can just use the responses you received as your transcript. So keep in mind that although they appear as separate sections as I've laid them out for the guidelines, we did them in stages just so that it would help you understand what each aspect was asking of you. But in your paper, portions of the interview can mix with portions of the artifact analysis or one of your secondary sources. So the strongest papers will actually combine those and synthesize them as we have discussed. Keep in mind that you also have the artifact analysis. These are written documents, reports, notes, memos, charts. It's kind of a fairly encompassing category. So these should in some way reflect the writing practices, the communication practices, the rhetorical practices of that field. And so you should have done a kind of rhetorical analysis of these, and those should in some way reflect your thesis. So use those as evidence and cite those in the text. Again, here's some examples from previous courses. I'm highlighting these because you'll see on the rubric that a fair amount of points is devoted to each one of these aspects. Okay. You should also have secondary sources. That was a couple weeks ago that you looked for sources and worked to kind of to synthesize those in your early stages of your drafts. We were working, if you remember, with combining secondary resources. Okay, let's look briefly at the rubric here. Okay, so purpose and focus, organization, all of these higher order concerns are worth the most. So working with the organization, look back at the book materials that I just went over to help you really look at how to organize the essay. And then you have a number of points devoted to each of your sources. So your secondary research, your primary artifact incorporation, and your interview. So if you don't have these, you're losing a lot of points. If it's not clear that you're including them, you also lose points that way. So keep that in mind. And some attention will be given to citing of sources and style and mechanics. So make sure you've proofread your paper, you've had other people proofread it, and so on. And even just meeting the requirements. So if your paper is significantly underdeveloped, it loses points that way. So keep in mind that it is 5 to 7 pages and that your works cited and the transcript are not included in those. So this week, reach out if you're having questions, if you're having any difficulty, because now is the time to do that. Because this is due Thursday, as you can see. You can submit it here. So by the end of the day, so seek out help if you need it. This week is devoted to working on revisions to do the best you can for this assignment. So you're incorporating revision suggestions from your peer reviews last week. You're looking at these sources here for MLA and brushing up, polishing the paper there. So just reach out to your embedded writing specialists or me or both, and we can help you this week. Take care and be well.